Christine with you on SportsCenter, and more than a dozen NFL teams will be reporting for mandatory minicamps tomorrow. To take us through the latest, we've got NFL insider Dan Graziano with us. All right, Dan, let's begin with the Browns, who have Shedeur Sanders as a part of a very crowded quarterback room. What can you tell us about how Sanders has looked so far?
Yeah, very crowded, as you say. Everybody's happy with what Shedeur Sanders is doing. It's just a question of getting everyone enough reps so that they can make a real evaluation. You have the two veterans in Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, and you have the two rookies in Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, is designing practice in a way to maximize reps. There are periods where the rookies will be on one field doing 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s while the veterans are on another field doing the same thing. So as we get into minicamp here and as the Browns get into training camp, that's going to be a big part of the story, is how do they get everybody enough practice reps so that they can make a decision on who deserves to start week one.
Yeah, I know everybody's to make an impact right away. What have you been hearing about Travis Hunter in Jacksonville?
Oh, so much good stuff, Christine. I mean, you heard Liam Cohen, the head coach, say last week that the defensive backs coach is asking if he can use him more on defense. They're trying to teach him the offense and sort of have him major on that side of the ball and minor in defense right now. But, you know, he's making highlight reel plays like we saw last week with that tip ball interception. And there's a pretty good feeling in Jacksonville that he'll be somebody who can help them in a number of different ways. He was, of course, the second pick. The first was Cam Ward, quarterback for the Titans. Titans have been very happy with everything they've seen from Cam Ward, first guy in the building, all that good stuff you want from your quarterback. A receiver named Xavier Restrepo, who's undrafted out of Miami. He's had a good connection with Cam Ward early in this off-season, and there's a thought that maybe bringing him in, because he played with him at Miami, has kind of helped Cam's transition. And in New Orleans, you have Tyler Shuck, the rookie out of Louisville. He's in a quarterback competition, ostensibly, with Spencer Rattler. And there are people in that building that like both guys an awful lot. I think there's a chance the Rattler could show them enough throughout the offseason that he might end up starting. But Shuck, no question about the talent, the arm talent. It has been on display in practices. It's just a matter of how quickly he gets up to speed. And, of course, Rattler has a little bit of a head start on him, having been in the league already.
All right, very curious to see how those quarterback competitions end up shaking out. Finally, there's some players that could find themselves on new teams by the time week one rolls around. So what is the latest on Kirk Cousins?
That Aaron Rodgers signing last week was not great news if Kirk Cousins wants to be out of Atlanta and get to a place where he has a chance to start. It seems like the musical chairs have all disappeared, and Kirk is still in Atlanta as Michael Penix's backup. So really right now, nothing hot here. I think someone's situation would have to change either via an injury to a quarterback or some other way that would open up a market for Kirk Cousins that right now has not materialized. If nothing changes, then he opens the season as Michael Penix Jr.'s backup. I do think the Dolphins are going to get Jalen Ramsey traded. They've made it clear, that he is a guy that they don't expect to be on this year's team. An acquiring team's going to have to pick up probably at least some of that $20 million he's got coming his way this year. And if the Packers are releasing Jair Alexander, who's a cheaper option, that could maybe slow down the market for Jalen Ramsey. But the Dolphins do believe they'll be able to find a trade partner for him, and he'll be on the move. We've heard Rams, we've heard Ravens, and there are other teams that have poked around on it, so we'll see how that shakes out.
All right, see where Jalen Ramsey ends up 87 days before the start of the NFL regular season.
Mandatory minicamp gets underway for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, and they'll have their starting quarterback in camp after Aaron Rodgers signed a one-year, $13.65 million deal with the team over the weekend. He passed his physical and will now get to work with his new team. As our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor, she's been joining us just about every day since the Rodgers news. She couldn't have found a better way to start her summer. So, what's been the reaction of Rodgers' new teammates since he signed in Pittsburgh?
Matt, the actual best way to start my summer was that yesterday I caught up with wide receiver Calvin Austin at an event at an ice cream shop in Pittsburgh, and he told me that he was excited to have Aaron Rodgers here in the building, and it was, of course, a relief because, as we know, this has been a long, drawn-out situation. I looked at him and I said, does it kind of feel like this is exams before you get to summer break? You've got the hardest stretch this week? And he laughed and said, yeah, it does. And I caught up with another Steelers player, tight end Pat Freiermuth, who, by the way, got engaged this weekend, so congrats to him. And he said he was also excited to have Aaron Rodgers here and that now they can take the steps to get to a Super Bowl. And to me, that just reflects the overall vibe of this team, that it's going to be business as usual, because while things have been a circus outside of the building, it's been pretty calm inside, going about their day-to-day life, because that's just how the Steelers operate.
Yeah, just that organization. We talked about the stability of the organization, how that might help with Aaron Rodgers coming in and everything that seems to follow him. But they got the franchise quarterback. They feel good about it. You've been our Steelers reporter since 2019. You have a great sense of the city and how the fans feel about the team. So what's that reaction been like now that the Rodgers number 8 signing is official?
Well, it's very much a mixed bag, because while I was at that event at the ice cream shop, a woman was talking with Calvin Austin, and she did not mince her words. She was not excited about Aaron Rodgers being her quarterback. She said she hopes that by early season, Mason Rudolph will be taking over. While I've seen from other fans chatting with them, being online, that they're excited to have Aaron Rodgers, because, you know, the Steelers have been wandering the quarterback desert since Ben Roethlisberger retired. So why not take a swing on a guy that's won 4 MVPs? But look, everything good is happening in Pittsburgh right now. The Pirates swept the Phillies in Pittsburgh for the first time since 2015 this weekend. Oakmont, the U.S. Open is happening later this week, and Aaron Rodgers is in town. It's a lot is going on here in Mr. Rodgers' neighborhood.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, it gets even better because they practice tomorrow, and you get to be back on SportsCenter with us again tomorrow. So, yeah, the summer of fun continues until then.
Year 2 for Drake Maye in the NFL, but year 1 working under a new head coach, Mike Vrabel. And right now, our Mike Reese has an article up on ESPN.com detailing how Maye's voice is being heard so far in camp. New on SportsCenter, Vrabel was asked today about his quarterback becoming a leader of his team.
Drake's, I think it's a unique position being 22, right? It's kind of unique in that sense. And so I think that there is a lot of room to grow. I think there's a lot of natural leadership qualities. I think I have to encourage him and continue to encourage him and to put him in those positions to do that, so that the players understand, you know, that there's a different version of all of us. There's one that's maybe off the field, that there's one in the meeting room, and then there's a version on the field which we all have to understand is somewhat different than what it may be off the field.
How fun is this? NFL insider Field Yates in studio with us. It's been a minute.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, you look great. Okay, so what are you hearing about Drake Maye in year 2?
Yeah, so you heard Mike Vrabel talking about how he views Drake Maye's leadership right now. And of course, Mike has a great pulse on that, being the head coach. But even going back to last year, while acknowledging there is room for continued leadership growth, during a season that was largely forgettable and perhaps regrettable, the Patriots saw a lot of natural leadership from Drake Maye. It's just hard to tout that leadership when you're on your way to a 4-13 season. But the Patriots believe he has all of the physical traits required to become a quarterback who can be your pillar for a dozen or so years. Some other quarterbacks have had those pillars or have those traits and have not reached those heights, but New England has plenty of confidence in Drake Maye. They love the way that they saw him handle a ton of adversity last year. There's basically an entirely new staff in New England. There's a lot of optimism already abounding within that building.
All right, New England has the 3rd easiest schedule in the league based on their opponent's winning percentage last year, which could, of course, mean a big year for Maye. Let's play a game called Field the Question, answering some key questions about quarterbacks in the AFC. Can Justin Fields get the Jets into the playoffs this season?
I don't believe so, but I will say this. I think the Jets offseason has been incredibly fundamentally sound. And that's not something we've been able to say about the Jets in many recent off seasons. I thought that they addressed free agency in an appropriate and I thought responsible way. I liked their draft class. Beefing up the offensive line continues to be a priority. They will be excellent on defense this year with Aaron Glenn as the head coach and certainly heavily involved in that defense. Playoffs, though, a little bit out of reach.
All right, looking forward to see what Justin can do there. Can Tua lead the Dolphins to a win in the playoffs this season?
You know, I am concerned about the defense for Miami, which at any moment now could see Jalen Ramsey traded to some team. He is certainly available, and it sounds like his chapter in South Beach is over. What I'm more concerned about, though, for Miami is this team just doesn't play well against the best competition. For the past 3 seasons, while we've seen a lot of growth from Tua Tagovailoa and at time eye-popping numbers, this team does not meet the mark when they play against legitimate competition. So I'm going to go with no on a playoff win.
All right, finally, can Josh Allen get the Bills over the hump and into the Super Bowl this season?
I really believe they're a true blue Super Bowl contender. If you go through this roster, what's the biggest area of need right now? You're going to have a hard time saying, okay, this is a major gap they cannot overcome. Do they have a wide receiver that defenses have to build their entire defensive game plan around? No, they don't. That being said, it didn't prevent Josh from having an MVP year last year. They should be better defensively this season. The Bills absolutely could be playing in Santa Clara come February.
Okay.